How does one become successful? Great question. I think focus is the one word that comes to my mind. And I think a friend of mine asked, um, I want to say, let me see here actually. I think a friend of mine told me that somebody he knows asked both Buffett and Bill Gates and they had the same answer. So focus, focus, focus. Focus on one thing. Be really, really focused on that one thing. And actually Palmer Luckey's story, and that's a spoiler alert, one of my favorite books that I read in prison was The History of the Future, which is a really, really compelling book, in my opinion, because it gives you a unbelievable vision into what it takes to be successful as a startup person. So here's the book I'm talking about, called The History of the Future. It's got a beautiful cover. Let me sort of move it. I like to move it, move it. By a great author named Blake Harris, who's currently working on another book, which is probably going to be even more popular. He actually wrote the original book about video games. And he really had direct access to all this stuff. So you have 19-year-old Palmer Luckey, who lives alone in a trailer, who created this $3 billion company. Now, he did it with John Carmack's help, but really amazing story of success, and kind of what happens when you focus on one thing and you make that one thing awesome. You can do really well. So I think that's probably perseverance is another good point. I think most people fail in startups because they thought, especially the first time, they thought they can tough it out through the ups and downs. Most people can't. Everybody who says they can't necessarily do it. It's really, really hard to sort of tough it out, and you're going to have a lot of ups, a lot of downs. You can't stomach those ups and downs and work them out. You're going to fail, and startups are one of the hardest things to do from that perspective. I haven't looked at Axome in a while. It's confirmed, as far as we know, that Binance has a letter of intent to acquire FTX. And we don't know what they'll do. I presume that they'll put it under. Haven't looked at Lucid stock very closely. I'm not bullish, though. And again, I'm not an electric vehicle expert by any means, so take it with a grain of salt. But it would seem like companies like Lucid and its kin are very, very high risk, extremely high risk. Yeah, it's very telling that FTX was going to buy Voyager. So the question is FTX, did they spend the cash to do that? Or are they insolvent even without the Voyager bailout? Really wild situation. Good market to be in if you could hypothetically be trading the Voyager debt in bankruptcy court and things like that. Alex asks, how do you retain and remember information? Whatever it may be, studying or reading. I think repetition is the key there. And you shouldn't be embarrassed about having to read something 3, 4, 5 times. I do it all the time. And I think that there's this tendency to sort of feel like you have to speed read through something or something like that. Richard is asking about AbbVie. Let's take a look. Here's my AbbVie model. This is available on GitHub, totally for free if anybody wants to check out github.com/Martin Shkreli. These are just some forecasts for AbbVie. They just reported Q3. It was remarkably good. I was really impressed by the Shkreli number, which doesn't seem to be slowing down. You can see Shkreli at 1.4 billion in revenue here. Pretty darn impressive. Also, Botox reaching new all-time highs. So that's $5 billion annualized. And even Humira, hanging in there. Not just hanging in there, but another all-time high for Humira before it goes biosimilar. On the downside, Imbruvica is starting to really fade. I guess the new BTK inhibitors are doing well. Ubrelvy and the migraine drugs are probably going to find a peak there. you know, both Qulipta and AbbVie are, you know, looks like about $1 billion in revenue combined annually, but it's unlikely that that'll sort of grow very much. And then Vraylar was a surprise. Vraylar is going to be generic at some point, but Vraylar was a big surprise. And then Rinvoq. So really, the AbbVie people have done an amazing job of replacing Humira. So if you've got between just Skyrizi and Rinvoq, you've got half the revenue accounted for there. And those are assets that'll be around a long time. So, you know, we don't know how hard the Humira landing will be. I don't think Humira will go to zero right away, but you know, it looks like if you do like combined immunology, see if I can make that here. Okay, combined immunology. You can sort of look at it like this. So 22 billion. Yeah, that sounds about right. You know, they're going to keep basically the same immunology revenue up until 2025, where I assume Humira really starts to take off a cliff. So let me adjust these a little bit. Either way, whatever shape of the curve you use, you know, they from 2020 at least, they sort of are keeping their immunology franchise revenue pretty flat, and they have other pipeline products. So really good job for AbbVie in replacing the immunology franchise, and also obviously acquiring Botox, acquiring Imbruvica, launching Venclexta, acquiring Vraylar. Not, you know, still a bit of a juggle in terms of AbbVie, probably fairly valued at this price. You know, my model says 145. The stock price is 145. It's 147, I think. And this is a pretty low discount rate. So with interest rates where they are, I use discount rates thinking about long-term equity discount rates, but I discount other pharma stocks sometimes at 7%. So I'm being a little bit generous to AbbVie. So, you know, I think AbbVie's, you know, really well managed, very, very smart management team, but not, you know, necessarily a good investment. I don't think we're going to see an mRNA cancer breakthrough. I think mRNA is not what you want to do for cancer. I've never met George Hotz, but I started talking to him the other day on his stream. I don't think he knows I was watching or who I am exactly, but I like George. He seems very, very solid, real pretty good developer. I've been writing a ton of code lately in Canvas. I don't want to show it necessarily.